Now, COVID-19 has hurt a lot of businesses, and to help get them through this, some businesses are raising prices and even instituting COVID-19 surcharges. This comes at a time when many customers are also being hurt by COVID due to factors such as reduced employment income and even loss of jobs. If not done properly, this could help set up for some ugly confrontations between customers and small businesses. Hi, I'm Josh MacEwen with Dufferin News, and we're here to talk about the COVID-19 surcharge that is currently being implemented by some businesses here in Ontario. Now, I haven't heard about this happening in Orangeville yet, or in Dufferin, but I did see this article posted in the Orangeville Electorate Facebook group, which I recommend joining if you're into politics. And this article discussed how the increased cost of doing business is leading some businesses to institute a COVID surcharge. Now, after doing some research, I've learned that many businesses in the States, and even Alberta and BC, started instituting these surcharges back in May. As many would expect, there was quite a bit of backlash to this, especially in the states where they haven't received government support to the same degree that we have. One restaurant received such a bad response to instituting a COVID-19 surcharge that they made national news. In addition to this, there are other concerns that come with implementing a COVID-19 surcharge, such as determining the appropriate amount as not to be considered price gouging, and possibly increasing the likelihood that you will receive a sales tax audit. Now, when these COVID-19 surcharges began, a steakhouse in Missouri implemented them, and a customer posted a picture of the receipt that included the surcharge to social media, and people freaked out. Now, the restaurant responded by taking the surcharge off of all the bills going forward, and instead just raised the prices across the board. So all anybody accomplished with this was less transparency and harassing a small business, because they were bothered a ton, because it was all over national news, and people were considering that they're profiting off a pandemic, which of course would be horrible. Now think about it. Hand sanitizer and disinfectant, extra time spent cleaning, gloves and other PPE, retrofitting areas with plexiglass and protective screens, training, never mind just the overall increased cost of goods. A salon owner said boxes of gloves used for color services, which they've always used, has jumped up from $8.95 a box to $20. And then someone else who does microblading and lash extensions in Toronto, who has always used disposable face masks, has seen the boxes of disposable face masks jump from $70.99 to $35 a box. You add to this lost time, capacity restrictions limiting revenues, possibly changes in the hours that they have to operate, and possibly an entirely new business plan that they're still adjusting to. Now, a COVID-19 surcharge doesn't sound that extreme when you think about all of that. There are mixed views on this, but it is legal. That being said, there are other methods to recoup COVID-related costs, the most simplest being just raise your prices. I'm all for transparency, especially in pricing, so you can put out a notice saying prices have been raised due to COVID, and you can list out all the reasons why it's happening. A COVID-19 surcharge, though, I only see this leading to trouble. Nobody wants to be reminded of what's going on more than they already have to be, and I imagine most who are fine with paying a COVID-19 surcharge will be fine with flat-out increased prices. Many businesses will just roll this over into their prices once COVID's less of a threat anyways, and who actually knows how many of these precautions will go away. When these charges were first being implemented back in May, many suggested that they should go away with phase 3. Obviously that was foolish because there's many businesses that are just thinking about implementing them now. Like I said earlier, there are other reasons to avoid implementing an outright COVID-19 surcharge. First of all, customers will somewhat expect this surcharge to be standardized, yet most businesses who are implementing it are just basing it off of their own estimations of their own costs. If you determine your surcharge to be 10% and your competitor makes it 5%, then that leaves more opportunity for your customer to think that you're price gouging them and that you're trying to profit off a pandemic. Look at what happened to that steakhouse just because they're one of the first to do it. Even if you and your competitor are the same price overall, a higher surcharge should be called into question and be asked to be removed. Then you're lower than your competitor, and how is that really fair just because you're more transparent with your pricing? Having the increased cost just built into your price removes a lot of these problems. Really. The second concern is that it may result in the likelihood of getting audited. COVID-19 surcharges, if not asked for as a donation or made voluntary, sort of like a tip, will most definitely count as revenue and will be taxed as such. Regardless, all will increase the likelihood of being audited. With possible tax miscalculations by staff and improperly programmed point-of-sale terminals, and governments looking for additional revenue, there will be plenty of excuses to look into this. CPA Canada advises that these surcharges be implemented as a last resort. They also recommend just raising prices. Consumer groups don't like that, but they also want an end date on these surcharges. And who can actually do that? If they know the end date of COVID, they should tell people, because we'd all love to know that, especially if there's going to be a second wave or not. But Doug Ford has no problems with these charges. Like I said before, they're legal. He said people can shop around and market forces should dictate this. As long as no one is being gouged, he has no problem with it. Now, I know nobody wants to deal with increased prices, but everyone is experiencing them, especially small businesses. We've seen tremendous support go both ways in our community, and it'd be terrible to hear that some small business person is being called out for being transparent with their pricing. As mentioned, all that happened to the restaurant, who made national news in the US, was that the surcharge was built in their pricing, so nothing was actually accomplished other than some small business people being harassed. Now, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, for small businesses in Ontario, the average additional debt that can be attributed solely to COVID-19 is $152,000. $152,000. How many years' salary is that for many of these people? CEBA was only $40,000. 56% of small businesses are relying on personal and retirement savings to help them get through this. Another 36% are relying on credit cards. Again, this is according to the CFIB. And at the end of this, they may end up with no business and forced to work a minimum wage job. We haven't been going through this an entire year yet. We don't know how supportive the government's going to be if there's a second wave. So these businesses will need to increase costs to survive. Small business people are a vulnerable group right now, which is messed up considering how much our community depends on them and how much they supported our community. If we don't support our small businesses through these times, we'll end up in a world where only big corporations like Amazon and Walmart exist. And then what's the point of living in Dufferin? It's certainly not at our internet speeds. Anyways, I'm Josh MacEwen with Dufferin News, and thank you for listening. Until next time, have a great one.